Can the real 100 girlfriends please stand up, because Spy Family just did exactly that with the Bondman show. I mean, our boy flew a little too close to the sun, and I think 7 might have been an okay number for him, because once we got to 8, that's when all the girls started realizing, wait a second, isn't there a little too many people hanging onto his arms? And just watching this man, he had the riz, he had the swagger. Every single time he would just save a woman and they'd be wrapped around his arm. But by the end of that episode, Anya thinks she learns what love and being an adult is, but all I see is Bondman getting shot, stabbed, and slapped around because he tried to pull a 100 girlfriends, and apparently 8 is just too much and it imploded on everyone. What a funny little goofy moment to tie an episode together. And honestly, similar to last week, I like how different the style and structure is compared to what we would normally see in season 1. Maybe these are the episodes that don't get talked about quite as much, but I do really like the change in pace and what they do for the characters. Now, I do have a full live reaction to today's wonderful, hilarious, and honestly quite different episode of Spy Family over on my Patreon, so if you would like to see that, it's over there if you're interested. So we get a pretty decent chunk dedicated to Yuri, and actually Yuri in a more serious mindset. Sure, we do get a little goofy Yor stuff at the end, but in general, it's actually all about focusing on a new character who he's basically investigating and trying to lock behind bars. And it's actually a surprisingly emotional story by the time we reach the punchline. We also get the hilarious stuff with Bondman, which was a nice kind of debriefer and kind of letting out, okay, that was a little tense, a little more emotional, so it's nice to have some goofiness here. And then after the credits, we have 3 very quick gags, all relating to Anya, whether going to the pool, whether, you know, goofing off on the most boring looking thing ever, but for her it's like the most wild ride ever, as well as just everything else we see. And it was a good episode. Now, these aren't the types of episodes that I think are the best of Spy Family, but I do think they are important to remind us that, you know, this show is clearly bigger than just our Central 3 or Central 4 if we are including, you know, our, of course, best doggo. But at the same time, I like the fact that we can separate Yuri and see that he is a very competent soldier, all things considered, right? I mean, he does his investigation. Yeah, he slips in some Yor every other day if he's a little sleep deprived. But it's interesting when you look at what they did for this mission. So we get introduced to someone who immediately just kind of gives you scumbag energy, or at least did for me. But over the course of it, you see like, okay, he clearly has his day job. He's also doing some shady photography, like, oh, look at these kids, you know, going through the trash because they can barely afford to eat, right? When really it's just him throwing their toy pistol into the trash can to get a scoop, right? Basically to get something that's framed. And he eventually also flies too close to the sun. And Yuri, it's interesting because he seems very cold to anyone who isn't his sister, right? That's kind of like the perception they gave us in season 1. If it's related to his sister and his sister's well-being, ride or die, he cares so much, maybe a little too much, but at the end of the day, you know that's genuine kindness and compassion. However, with this, he's pretty much right away just trying to lock him away, thinking he's a scumbag. But I like the moment prior to the arrest because he's basically listening in, and you can see that this man, he's struggling. He's poor. He doesn't really have, you know, he's struggling to pay his rent. He basically is taking care of his father, didn't have the money to save his mother based on their short little conversation, and very clearly is a family-oriented man. You can make the argument, well, a family-oriented man wouldn't go behind the law's back and, you know, potentially put them in jeopardy. But when push comes to shove, I mean, people are going to do whatever it needs to be done in order to attempt to survive and give a better life for everyone, right? And I like the fact that that moment is the entire reason Yuri does something so kind at the end. It shows a very human moment for a character who can be a very big meme character, like look at his flirtatiousness and over-the-top siscon energy, or just he's a cold, hostile asshole. But instead, we get this very simple moment where he protects the father. Now, I was hoping he wasn't going to drop the letter in and get arrested, but once he did, it was pretty much game over. But it's interesting how he doesn't go upstairs. He doesn't make a scene because he knows that his father doesn't want his son getting involved in bad things, which is why ultimately the son says, well, listen, I'm probably not going to be around for much longer. Immediately, I was worried because ultimately, if he's the one working, I mean, the father's not moving too well. Clearly, he's the one with sketchy jobs, normal jobs, he's paying for everything. That father's going to be homeless in the next day because he told the landlady like in a couple of days he would pay the rent. How is rent going to get paid even next month if it's already been paid for this month? And the idea that Yuri says, I will do something, I will make sure that your father gets some extra support so that he'll be able to survive. We don't see a smile, we don't see a hug, we just see a mutual respect that even though they're on two very different sides and they don't respect each other, the fact that we're not going to make the father suffer for the mistakes of the son is something that emotionally moved me. And I think that really ties this entire section together to show something that, you know, Yuri is a character who may not get as much characterization or spotlight as Bond or Yor or Lloyd or Anya, but at the same time, he is more than just the I love my sister attitude. And I think this was a very important moment that I'm glad they adapted and didn't just shoo away. And I'm also glad that they started the episode with, because it was like 12 or 13 minutes or 15 minutes of the episode, something like that, in terms of like showing just this content. They show it at the start so then they can have goofiness after. Because if you would have started the episode with like the Bondman show or showing some of the goofy little things after the credits and then go into the emotional, that would have felt like the wrong type of whiplash. But by showing that, it's not tearjerker. It hits you in the feels. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, damn, that's actually, you know, I wish things would have been different, but at least the dad isn't gonna be on the streets. It's the right type of emotional. And it's the perfect time to let everyone debrief afterwards. The fact that he goes over and sees his sister and just the little head pat. Like, yeah, he's overly flirtatious and flustered about things, but at the same time, the guy did go through quite a bit with that mission. And even though he's very loyal to his country, at the same time, sometimes it's hard not to look at things and be like, what could have been? Like, maybe people shouldn't be suffering like this, right? And I really enjoyed what they did. And as I said, I think it's hilarious to see the real 100 girlfriends in action. And, you know, the fact that it's not just a slap to the face. I mean, he was recruiting like criminals, right? So those criminals, when they think they're being played, start stabbing fools. He gets literally shot in the chest, and just, it's funny, man. I really enjoyed it, and I like the fact that they shifted the art style and the animation style to do something that felt like a cartoon for their world, or a show for their world, rather than just the general art style you see when we watch this show. And the cute little after the credits gags were also very fun. I like the also different art style, art direction, and it was just, it's nice, man. Like, I don't think Spy Family can do anything that would truly bore me, but I do understand when either last week's episode or an episode like this aren't everyone's cup of tea, or they think it's the best episode ever, or a really good episode potentially. But for me, I like seeing all the different sides. Like, if the season was just moments like this, like with Yuri, then maybe I would have a different tune. But I just know, like, now being 28 episodes total into Spy Family, I appreciate seeing things that are actually different than what I've come to expect from Spy Family, and they're showing me things that didn't get as much spotlight in the first season, whether that is the assassination stuff with Yor, whether that is last week with actually fleshing out Damien and his goons, or in this episode, seeing some more interesting side to Yuri than just him overly obsessed with his sister. And I say, keep giving me stuff like this season, because I want to see more stuff that is different than what I've come to expect, while also still showing me the things that I have come to expect, which is that adorable, chaotic family known as the Spy Family. So let me know what you thought of this week's episode. What did you think? Favorite moment, if you got any, let me know down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course ring that bell so you can get notified when I upload more videos to the channel. And like I mentioned, we have a full live reaction over on my Patreon, and hey, while you're there, you also get a video shout out. So today we have Loon, Pranay Sumshwar, Darian Smith, Slim Shady 1, and Raj Vermoen. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.